Okay, so yeah, Mr. Adam does have a book out, how to get through writing like a beast and whatnot. And yeah, one of the biggest things is you have to have your hero fight against something. And I took developing my villains in a very simple way. What are all some of the worst vices and like sins people can commit? I basically wrap that all up into the villains. Like one will be the personification of pride, another one envy, another one with Kronos, the simple thing is it's like what would happen if you just took a scientist and they didn't have any moral compass at all. They just, oh, for the results, tee hee, that sort of thing. Like something very simple. Like, and yes, it does make a lot of the villains very one dimensional, but that's okay. You can start off with one dimensional villains and develop things over time if you want to. Um, but my series is definitely not villain focused. They'll pop up to help the plot move along, and so you can see the heroes react to what they're doing. But the villains aren't getting the lion's share of my story. It's how all the heroes are affected by them, and how basically a fair amount of secrets are affecting them. As it comes out in the open, it's like, yeah, will this destroy some families or bring them closer together? That's also a main simple theme I have for Uplift Protocol. I mean, you'll get more and more of this as you do. The one simple thing is just keep writing. The first draft or two of Uplift Protocol, which ended up being about, I want to say about 200k words. Yeah, I made all sorts of writing mistakes there. I opened up with the protagonist having a dream. They were still stuck in high school, which didn't, click with me, like I've said before. Um, I did a bit too much info dumping, so now when it comes to certain plot points, like I'll basically go over it in the quotes. Like, I won't show every little thing that happens to them on screen. You don't really have to. You can still get the results across later on with a little quip of dialogue or something else. I'm not gonna focus on every little healing session they have after battles or things like that unless it's pertinent to the actual plot and moving it forward. Um, I do bring up the villains every once in a while just to show how those plot threads are going to play out, or planting the seeds, as I like to call it. You know, and yes, there are some books that focus a lot more on the villains. But the biggest takeaway I got from Write Like a Beast was, yeah, the villains do instigate a lot of stuff, because otherwise, the heroes would be just going about their normal everyday, like, I'm trying to live my best life, yo. Um, and the part of the reason why I also keep the villains a bit more off screen, except for updates here and there, is because I want to keep some of their actions cloaked a bit. Now, do I really reveal some stuff in the actual quotes before each issue starts? Yes, I do. I often do that, and you'll get little hints about what's going to happen in future books because of it. Because it's a way to build up to something. Like with everything else, like the middle part is just showcasing how everybody's going to get to that overall ending. Um, but what's also helped me is if you just you don't have to do a very extensive outline if you want to. You could just do something like, okay, in this book, this is what happens to get the characters on track for the big arc ending in book 3 or book 7 or however you want to build it. Each season for me, like here, I'll give you a little setup for season 1 here. It's all been building up to the fact that, Eliza and Dexter have to take up the full mantle of their defender stuff, which a lot of that's going to happen near the end of book 2, but book 3 is also going to deal with, like, a little bit of the fallout from that and building up the Markav again, along with the end capper, which is if people have been reading along, it's like, there be a pirate fleet that's interested in them, and they think they got all the keys to the kingdom because they can move through the weave space. Like, you think you're the only ones that can do that? Yeah, because season 2 is where I'm gonna really open up a lot more things, and they're going to be dealing with a lot more basically like Typherian stuff. And then the one after that is mainly going to be them dealing with like Kronos and all that, and then the last part of it, the season 4, is going to be basically wrapping up everything, where the big battles to secure the multiverse are going to happen, which is against Unity. So all these plot threads are slowly building up to that big old final battle that's going to happen at the end of the series. And then, of course, Sleeping in Starlight is kind of going to be like the big send-off that I really wish that failures like Mass Effect had. It's like, dude, guys, yeah. So again, sometimes it's better just to watch to see how something fails, so you don't repeat it in whatever you're building. That's about it. I mean, I decided that parts of what I was writing for book 2, it's like this would kind of fit book 3 a bit more, especially once you see where Thoth's going to end up. I could even here, where is it? Where did I put it? I have like a little like kind of villain hierarchy thing, like which each villain, like which one's controlled by what. I just gotta remember where I put my setup. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm finding it now because I'm not awake and I'm about to have more coffee. But overall, everything in the series is kind of like different mirrors, or like what's the equal yet opposite of a particular character. So the Weave has Dexter and Eliza. Well, Unity has Set, which kind of fills the same role as them. That's the reason why in the other issue I introduced the other kind of prophecy, but this is from the bad guy end. It's like, oh, okay. So I decided overall Kronos would be influencing certain villains from one end, and then Set would be influencing certain villains from the other, and each of them has a particular role to instigate. But overall, my series, is mostly going to cover how all of this affects the Murphy family and those around them. So that's the central thing. Like, I know, lots of the advice says like, oh yeah, keep building up the villains. Well, you can do that, but you can also do that in the background. They don't have to be the centerpiece if you don't want them to. Again, this is just my opinion. You still have to have their actions affect things. But that's why, kind of like Bester from Babylon 5, when my villains show up, they really do affect things. They throw a whole lot of monkey wrenches into the works. It's not that all my villains aren't doing anything at all. No, they definitely are. It's just I'm showcasing the results much, much more from the protagonist and their team's point of view rather than the villain point of view. Because for me as a reader and writer, I'm tired of the extreme villain focus. I think just like Spice's, villains should show up when it's pertinent to the plot, and then when it's not, that way their appearance will have more of effect. Like, say, for example, in The Magician's Nephew, the White Witch isn't in there as much. I mean, she's in there for certain chapters to make a point, but the main focus is on the creation of Narnia, focusing on what Aslan did to start it up, and the temptation for the main characters to be like, okay, should we hit this bell, or should we eat this apple, that sort of thing, or should we take the apple? Very simple dilemmas for the heroes. And then the villain will pop up to exacerbate or instigate a higher level of tension. And it's a simple way to do it. Like Jadis, the White Witch didn't have to be um, there the whole time to get that sense of like, oh God, she's messed up, or this is like a sense of dread. Polly was able to reflect in that, to help, like, hey, no, you shouldn't ring that bell. You might be, oh. Yeah, and even the simple description of the world she came from, it didn't need a ton of exposition or a ton of over description. I could just easily picture in my head with a couple of lines from him. That's the reason why I'm rereading a lot of C.S. Lewis, because I like how light and fast his style is. He gets a lot of things out in just a 50 to 60,000 word, book. And I find that quite enjoyable. So that's what I've been doing. How about you guys? This has been another writing ramble for today. And I will link Adam's stuff below again, just to see if it helps you guys out. That's the reason why I also don't believe in writer's block. Because that's another thing I picked up from his book. Like, yeah, if the hero needs to do something, have the villain poke it. If the villain needs to do something, have the hero poke it. It's kind of like a back and forth. Like, have each faction have a response to what each other's doing. Like right now in the background, Belle is is hunting around for Zach. She's just globetrotting, trying to find him. Because she assumes, and correctly, that since he was in a demi-uniform and that he's, partially human, that he'd be much more situated on Earth. And yes, I'll be giving little updates to that later, but villains really aren't my main focus. And yeah, that's a direct response to all the postmodernistic, nihilism of everybody's got to make, like, oh, I want a sympathetic villain, I want a villain redemption arc, I want a villain POV because they're more interesting than the heroes. It's like, no, not for me. And, as I keep going, Uplift Protocol will keep gaining more momentum. I've already seen bits and pieces of it here and there on Minds, even on the Twitter twatter, some responses on the blog. I mean, and I get it. Sometimes people don't respond on blogs. They'll read it and they'll absorb the information. But sometimes, I've gotten into the habit where I'm going to start leaving little comments here and there, even if it's just simple comments, because that will tell the writer that people are paying attention, even a little bit. I mean, the clicks are good. You can see the results in the number of clicks. But, even to say, like, hey, I'm finding this fun, munches popcorn. That's what I did with Mr. Henry's blog, because I realized, like, I enjoy seeing a comment or two every once in a blue moon. It doesn't have to be instant validation all the time. I just like knowing that people are reading it. And that's also even apparent on social media when people are reblogging and tagging stuff, even with Uplift Protocols tags. So yes, Mega, I see you there, and yes, I see Xavier and Draco too. So it's like, yes, everybody's like basically contributing in their own way. That's all that's really needed. But yeah, depending on whatever kind of writing style or focus you want, this book does help. I mean, most of the pulp writing books that I've picked up have helped in some way. But you know what? I'll just link Pulp on Pulp, Mr. Adams stuff, and also like a little bit more of the Pulp Writer's Guide stuff, because I'm reading all of them from here to there. And it's not so much, again, to enhance my own writing. It's more like you need more tools for your toolbox so you can basically promote the kind of writing style you want. I also read a lot of books, like, if the sample captures me enough, I'll read the rest of the book usually. And I'm finding that more and more books I pick up, the plot and exposition and all the character stuff is fairly balanced. Like, one isn't the overall, like, a big breadwinner, as it were. Because, again, I do enjoy some things like Sword of Truth and everything, but I find, like, if I'm rereading it or rereading parts of it, I'll kind of skip a lot of the description and just get to the point where it's like, okay, Richard and Callan are doing something. Or, and I realize some of these books want to be more philosophical in a way, but right now my main focus as a reader is to be entertained. And since I have a full-time retail job, I have to balance the two. So that's why most of my free time is going to writing. And will I get better with, like, doing fight scenes and everything else? Oh yeah. Like, I'm just taking cues from books that, like, describe a fight scene very quickly within a couple of lines. If your book is more like military operator focused, kind of like with Heroes Unleashed, everybody has their own, like, little sub setup of within the Heroes Unleashed setting that they all focus on different wheelhouses. Like, specifically Kit's books, his is very oriented towards, kind of police and military kind of drama. So he has to bring in a lot of knowledge from that to cater to readers that know about that stuff or are interested about that material. So his superheroes will come from a more military kind of background, or a few others, but he gives, like, there's a stamp of authenticity to it, especially with the fight scenes, where it's like, yes, you could tell what he's bringing into this. And even with Uplift Protocol, yeah, there's certain pew pew scenes that, yes, I'll be trying to channel a bit of Hunter Harrington that I've read over the years, a bit of the Galaxy's Edge, where they did quick and to the point, battle scenes for the ships, for the ground troops, because, yeah, my series is going to have a little bit of that, and it's going to be a little bit more apparent in book 3, because we're going to get away from kind of like a little bit more of the Cold War aspect to where stuff will start heating up, like things are starting to come out in the open, and the general universe at large is going to realize, like, hey, Earth isn't just a bunch of people just now reaching K2 status, as far as tech. They're a lot more interconnected than everybody first thought, which is the reason why I did a little bit of foreshadowing with the other universe, with the United Earthfront universe, where the humans over there are the de facto dominant people, both tech and magic wise and everything else, and they don't have as many Debbies over there, but every universe has a little bit different makeup. But they basically, when they found Typha over there, those Typherians were still, they weren't quite K2. They were almost there, but a lot of house wars and infighting and civil wars and blood feuds, everything else under the sun kind of kept them back. Where the throne artifact was still there. It was still, but it wasn't fully activated. And basically, those Typherians, especially a lot of the houses, are jealous that the humans were able to basically uplift them, But I came at that from a point where, certain races, they do think all their stuff that happens on their planet is the center of the universe, and if you knock them around off that way of thinking, sure, some will, like, gravitate towards it faster. But I also wanted to have a reason why, basically to give a very simple motivation for Thoth to be like, I hate humanity. Because he sees them as people who put a chain around Typha's neck and, like, oh, you will do this. Again, it's from the villain's point of view, and he thinks he is the hero of his own story, which is a very simple setup. But, Thoth is a very good example of pride goeth before the fall, along with Hillary too. Oh god, yeah, so many of the villains, I'm pretty much, they are not gonna meet a good end. They really aren't. But that's the whole point. Like, because me personally, as a reader, as I've said before, I'm tired of the villain worship. So there you go, everybody. Have a good day.